What's good, everybody? And today we're going to be doing something a little bit controversial today. I know. I am going to be talking about Genshin Impact. Yes, me, the Kurobot, the person who has been making basically strictly Wuthering Waves content on this channel since I started doing gacha for basically a year and a half ago at this point, is dipping her toes into Genshin Impact. I know. You can get the hate comments away in the comments right now. How dare she? She is a traitor. How could she be talking about this game? Listen, I get it, but I feel like, hear me out on this one. That's all I have to say. Hear me out, because I feel like we could have some pretty good conversations that come from this today. And yes, hi, we're doing a change of pace. I'm doing some more IRL content recently. I appreciate everyone's been so nice. I've basically been like doxxed from the start. This isn't entirely new, but I know it is to my YouTube audience. So hi, my name's Kate. Nice to meet you, I guess. And yes, I have 100% stolen Gacha Mac's whole setup and vibe of this one because, hey, I think Ugg was cooking low-key. I'm not gonna lie. So we're definitely yoinking this vibe base for the time being, but I could never have the same aura that he does. He's far too cool. But hey, we're giving it a shot anyway. Oh, by the way, I'm going to try and make this spoiler-free. So if you are someone who was going to want to play it yourself, hopefully I'm not going to reveal anything too much to you. Anything I do say, I'm gonna try and like censor it as much as possible. So just to provide a little bit of context, I did stream myself on Twitch and more importantly on YouTube, playing through both Act 1 and Act 2 of these Archon quests. I think they call it the Luna quests, or whatever it is, for not Krai. And it was a very interesting time, to say the least. Firstly, I want to kind of address something. I have had numerous comments on my YouTube live stream saying, this chat is so bad. How could she play this with this chat? This is the worst chat I have ever seen. And to that I say, I could completely understand where that sentiment would be coming from. I am very aware of the audience that I have when it comes to my content. Again, I've been playing Wuthering Waves before the game even launched. I've been making content about the game since before it launched. I was one of the OG Wuthering Waves content creators, if you could say. And I'm aware that during that time, I will have 100% picked up an audience that is very much maybe pro Kuro and anti Hoyo, or people that were fatigued with Genshin Impact and they couldn't get over a lot of the things that Genshin weren't addressing that they really wanted to make their game better. And I'm aware that when I play through these quests and I go through the story, that those people are going to come to a head when it comes to me playing through it live. But I want to make something very clear. I am not here to scold the community that I have built. I'm not here to censor how some of my community might feel towards Genshin Impact. I'm very much aware something like this would have happened and might have happened. I'm not oblivious. I did not expect to go into this with the most positive community that was so open-minded. I'm aware. Like, I'm very aware of what would happen, but I have to say, I don't think it was this overly toxic environment. I think there were a couple of people who were just like hate watching to be silly and to make some comments. But at the end of the day, these are people who kind of stuck around for almost like 10 hours of me playing through Genshin Impact. And if they really were truly hateful, I think they just wouldn't have kept watching. I don't think they would have sat through 10 hours otherwise. My approach to handling everything and chat and community when it comes to playing Genshin Impact is to kind of lead by example, I think, rather than pick people and fight them and be close-minded and be, oh my god, I hate this. Oh my god, chat, you're so right, I hate this. My approach has been more to, I'm just gonna play the game. I'm just gonna be honest about how I feel. If I like things, I'll like it. If my chat disagrees, okay. You can disagree. I'm not going to ban people for disagreeing with me. I'm not going to ban people which I know are part of my community who have been fatigued with some things that Genshin has done wrong. I'm not going to ban those people. I'm just going to lead by example and hope that after 10 hours of me playing and having my reactions and my feelings, they might also maybe, I can influence maybe a positive change to some degree to maybe some people. And if they don't and they still hate the game afterwards, that's fine. That's their opinion. They're more than welcome to feel however they want about a gacha game. It is not my job to control my community's feelings or opinions. My job is to control my chat, being respectful to other people in the chat. It is not my responsibility to censor people for what they're saying about a video game. That's the difference. So let's get into me talking about my actual experience playing Genshin Impact. Gonna be honest, let's start with Act 1, go from the very beginning. I was a little bit worried. I'm not gonna lie, the introduction to Not Krai was slow. It took me around 2.5 hours, maybe 2 to 3 hours. Again, I was reading everything. I was listening to every voice line. I wasn't like skipping anything. I was trying to pay attention as much as possible to the story, because you guys know when I do story quests, I really like to lock in and understand what I'm listening to. You guys know, like from my Wuthering Waves story reactions, I really try. I 100% try, and I try and immerse myself and put myself in, and it took me around 2.5 hours to kind of get through all these introductions and really start to experience what the actual plot of Not Krai is. But here's the thing, was it slow? Yes, it's 2.5 hours. But did I feel like every piece of dialogue had a place and a purpose? Also, yes, which really kind of like took me by surprise. There was never a point where I was like, oh my god, I'm bored. There was a point where I'm like, this is kind of slow and dragging a bit, but I'm also not bored. What they were saying was keeping me interested enough to be intrigued, because I'm aware that Not Krai does require a bit of like an exposition dump on you for you to understand what is happening and the context surrounding, especially for someone like me who, I'm gonna be honest, skipped half of Natlan. 3/4 of Natlan I basically skipped. So the added context was pretty welcomed in this case, but it did go on. It did have a pace to it. I feel that might put people who are a little bit like on the edge of whether or not they want to dip their toes back into Genshin. I feel it might put them a bit on edge, knowing that the introduction is a little bit hazy. And then we get introduced to Lauma, and I have to say, she has a phenomenal character design. I think she is a great character, and she really kind of showcases how Genshin is trying to level up their graphics, level up the intensity and character fidelity in these designs, and you can really see it with designs of both her in Flint, in Anefa. You can really tell they're trying to get to that next level a little bit as much as they can in this ever-changing world of gachas becoming more and more graphically intense and diverse and keeping up with the times. Now, when it comes to her involvement in the story, she is kind of the exposition giver. She is the one who tells you everything about the Frost Moon Scions and the goddess, and she portrays it in such a beautiful way. I'm pretty sure it's Cantarella's VA who voices Lauma, which is very cool. My only critique though is that like a lot of Hoyo characters, for some reason I've noticed, just talk so slowly, and they speak like this in sort of a whimsical fantasy sort of way, and I'm like, just hurry up, get to the point. I got a quest to do. It's already 10 hours long. I don't need this to be 10 hours more longer. I really do appreciate that with this act, and Genshin has switched up the way they also tell their character stories. It really feels like we get a whole arc of Lauma, of her and her motivations and her desires and her wants baked into the story itself, and have them be connected and entwined. And I really love that. She asks the traveler a lot of interesting questions that then the traveler himself has to kind of deal with in his own way later, and they all interlink, and her motivations are embedded into the overall story, and I love that. I think they wrote her so beautifully. I genuinely do mean that. I think Lauma's arc is very like tragic. It actually made me feel kind of upset at one point. Like, it really got to me. I was like, wow, she has to do so much, and she has to go through like a sacrifice, and you kind of, at least I did, I really felt that for her. And for a moment I was like, wow, like I'm really into this. I'm invested into what is happening right now, which is a positive. and I really like them able to feel that way. And it's honestly the feeling that I had when I used to play Genshin and enjoyed it. I've always played Genshin Impact for its story. Since I've played since launch. I always played it for the story. I even was someone who liked Sumeru. The first half was, you know, we all know, but the second half I really vibed with. Fontaine was one of my favorite gacha stories I've ever played through. It was just Natlan for me that I just didn't resonate and connect with, but I got that feeling back while I was playing through Not Krai of like, wait a minute, this is the kind of storytelling that drew me in when I was really enjoying like Fontaine. Did it take a while to get there? It did. I'm gonna be totally honest, it took a while to get there, but I really felt it. And a lot of that was to do with Lauma and her character arc. So I think they wrote her pretty beautifully into this story. I'm also finally glad that they're including the Traveler a lot more into the story. He doesn't feel as much of a passenger as he used to be. And now it's like, wait, his motivations, things that he wants and he desires, is directly impacting the story. He has a couple more voice lines, which was nice to see. Again, that is a point of criticism that I've always had, is I would like to hear him more. We don't need Paimon to always narrate his thoughts, although I do have to say the new Paimon VA is very welcomed. It's a lot more tolerable for me to listen to personally. The pitch is just like perfect for my ears, so it's not as grating, but I still want to see Traveler speak a little bit more on his behalf, because I'm gonna be honest, one of the best parts of the quest for Act 1 was when Paimon wasn't even involved. Paimon wasn't with us, and we had one of the best moments of the whole entire quest, which I think says something. But I love the fact that his motivations tie into the story and they mean something, and that is awesome, and that is what people kind of want. At this point, I do believe the devs when they say, hey, we're trying to combine a bunch of stories together, like the Traveler stories, his siblings together, what is the purpose of Tevat, the secrets of Tevat. They really do feel like they are all colliding in this patch, and I like that, and I think it's about time, and it's what people needed, and it's all coming together, and I do think they wrote that pretty well, especially the part where, you know, Traveler is no longer with Paimon, and we have honestly one of the best parts of a quest I've done in a Genshin arc. I'm trying so hard not to spoil. I'm really trying so hard to spoil. You'll just have to play it for yourself, but there is a moment where the Traveler is in presence with their sibling, and cool stuff happens, and I just thought it was awesome. I really did. It really took me by surprise, but I liked it, and I liked where it was going. And then we have like the introduction of Columbina, which is the kind of like the Archon equivalent of this patch. She is the moon goddess. She is supposed to be you know, the prophesized goddess that is returning and rebirth to give hope back to the Frost Moon Scions. And even she has this very tragic upbringing that you really kind of feel for, even though she was a harbinger and you know, aligned with the Fatui at one point. You really feel like, damn, this is a girl who's she's just trying to live. She's just trying to have purpose, and she doesn't know who to trust. She doesn't know who family is, and that is it. It resonates. It really does. And again, it was something that I felt, and I was like, damn, like I'm really invested into her. The conclusion of Act 1 was rounded up pretty nicely, I'd say, narratively wise, but again, a criticism that I have for Genshin Impact and its way of visually telling the story of, you have Lauma, again, no spoilers, we have Lauma addressing the Frost Moon Scions for something that is like very important. It's a big moment. It's a huge moment that will imply like a lot of change for everybody. And they're just kind of like gathered around on a staircase, kind of like staring at each other as she like says a few words. And I'm like, I feel like this deserved like a cinematic, like something big. Like this is going to like lots of people going, huh? What? Wow. Like shock and surprise and awe, and something kind of like deserved to be big. And instead we got them like standing on stairs. And I'm like, well, you missed a big one there. And it's like, I don't understand why we can't just like those moments when we're supposed to really feel, why we can't just put that like 20% extra effort to really drive that point home for people. But like I say, narratively, it was great, but like in terms of storytelling and visuals and really nailing that point home, I feel like they could do a lot better. And this was something that happened again in Act 2. But before I talk about Act 2, I have to talk about one of my favorite parts about Act 1. Nefer and Jehoda, some of my favorite interactions. Jehoda has become one of my favorite characters. Her design, she looks awesome. Apart from the things that are like holding up her bosom looks a bit strange, but like she's so cool, and I love the way they made her so animated and expressive. It was almost ZZZ like, which was cool to see. And almost every time we interacted with her, which was kind of like a chunk of the story, it was so cool. It was really cool, and that was really great storytelling, and I need more of that, Hoyo. I need more of that. Give us that, because she honestly became one of my most favorite and recognizable parts. And also we have Nefer, who I believe is Chang Li's VA. She's so hot, I have to say. I folded. I'm not gonna lie, I folded for her. She's like Yalan but green and cooler. Like that's how I feel about Nefer. But she was awesome, and the two interactions really made me be like, okay, they're kind of cooking with this one, I'm not gonna lie. But Jehoda's interactions with the cast was awesome. The puzzles you have to do while you're in like the Fatui base, mid. Gonna be honest, mid. It low-key almost dragged a little bit. Like it was almost at the point where I'm like, I'm kind of tired of this story. And then we get to a conclusion. Lalma's there, the whole group is there. We have like another revelation. We have a big revelation about an important moment. And again, it's just like people kind of like standing around talking about something, and it's like this should have been a more punchy run home moment, and they kind of, you know, failed a little bit on that delivery. But overall, yeah, I just completely forgot Jehoda, one of my favorite additions to this cast, and I think she's awesome. I need more of those expressions for other characters in the game. But yeah, let's go talk about Act 2, I guess. It's a lot shorter than Act 1. And I'm kind of glad, because I'm going to be honest, the only good part about Act 2 was the last hour. A lot of people say, oh my god, the ending of 6.0 was really hype, like it was so good. Act 2 was like so good. They're talking about the last 10% of the act. The last 10% is really cool, and we meet Mr. 10% Man, the main villain, or it seems to be like kind of like a main antagonist outside the Fatui. Again, I'm not gonna spoil. Mr. Bandage Man, he was awesome. I loved him. I thought he was great. The whole last scenes were amazing, but everything leading up to that was, oh my goodness, it was almost painful going through like, oh, we can't go into this place, there's a banquet going on, we have to like find Nefer and she can get us inside, and we have to like mix all these drinks and talk to all these people and find information. You find nothing. You find out like one sentence that you need of like after oh my god, I can't. It pissed me off, I'm not gonna lie. It really did kind of drag, and a lot of it felt like it kept going and going, and I'm like, I'm waiting for something interesting. And then we meet up with Flint, and we get more of Flint's arc, and I kind of think he's gonna have like more to do with the story, especially because of his background that we find out like later on. I hope so. I don't think Flint's arc is concluded, kind of like Llama's was. If it is, I'm going to be disappointed, because I feel like he deserves like something else to kind of like finish it off, and given his background, I feel like we need a bit more. But I know Genshin is kind of good at including characters along in their story as you go along the quests. But I felt there was something that I wasn't kind of like getting with Flynn's. The main antagonist and Flynn's have like this like a connection, so to speak, that you kind of have to figure out, and it was okay. It was fine, but the conclusion was a very satisfying payoff for all the trauma I felt when I was getting dragged through mixing drinks for people. And there was a moment, I won't lie, when it came to the ending that I thought was dumb. It was really dumb. So without saying this with spoilers, there is a very intense moment at the end where it's like, oh my god, we have to make sure that these people don't fire this cannon. It's a really intense moment. We have to be very quick and make sure these people aren't gonna shoot us with a cannon. It's very quick and intense. And it's insane. Like we must go now to stop this. And we go there into Nasha Town and we just casually stroll. No sense of urgency. No sense of like we have to make sure we have a duty. It's like we're just casually strolling and people just move aside. There's no conflict we have to resolve. People just like move aside. These are people who are trying to stop us from like letting this cannon go off, right? And they just like step aside. And I was like, this is so stupid. Like this, I do not feel any sense of urgency. I know you could argue like, well, you know, like if why would you look panicked in a time like this? You have to like have yourself together for people to believe you. It's like, we're on the clock. Like we have stuff to do. So that part I thought was like it was, to me, like I started laughing. It was like borderline silly. That pacing did not match the vibe that we were going for like imminent danger. But hey, it is what it is. At least it wasn't that long is all I have to say. But again, the overall conclusion and the ending cutscene I thought was awesome. The ending cutscene was great. And again, as we see this main antagonist and the conflicts, it's like, you know what? We're gonna have an interesting time at 6.0. The setup has been complete. I consider this the setup, and there is so much lore setup and so much story for the rest that I'm personally very interested in. And I'm interested to try out. And will I be sticking with playing through Genshin? Yeah, but only for the story. Because if we want to talk about endgame, that's a completely different topic. That's a completely different conversation that I'm not even going to get to today. I'm not here to talk about all the problems about the game with Genshin. I'm purely here to talk to you and tell you about my story experience and how I felt playing this game. For 10 hours it was, I think, altogether. Yeah, I played it for 10 hours, which is very long. That's so long. It shouldn't have to be that long, and I agree. So again, my pros are the way that the character fidelities in terms of their design has been massively upgraded. I like the fact Paimon sounds better. I like the fact that the travelers' motivations are more ingrained into the story. I like the fact that the characters' stories are ingrained into the quest too. I love the fact we're actually getting answers, or like at least getting close to answers to things we've kind of had for a while. The music is awesome in Krai. It's some of my favorite, I think. Big W to me personally. I think Sumeru is some of my favorite, but like this is pretty close for me. But again, I really wish they focused a little bit more attention on some big hitter moments that could benefit from cutscenes. You know, I know I have been blessed with Wuthering Waves storytelling and their cinematics and how they approach them and how they are able to incorporate a lot of them into the story. And I think it's about time Genshin kind of followed suit. I think they're getting closer. I really do, especially with like character expressions and trying to like not just frame things as like a visual novel, but actually trying to be a bit more dynamic. They're getting better, but they're not quite there yet, and they need to, I think, keep going with it and lean into it a bit more. And that's kind of how I feel. So would I give it out of 10? Like unironically like a 7 out of 10. Unironically 7 out of 10. If they kind of if they keep up the pace and they just go for the hard-hitting stuff. Now we've had the exposition dumps. If they keep going a bit more refined, they tone it, they condense it down a bit and make it punchier, I could probably bump it up. And if the story continues in the same quality, we'll just have to see. So that's kind of how I feel about Genshin Impact and its story quest. And hey, you can disagree with me all you want. That's fine. And I hope we can have like a respectful, civil discussion and conversation about this. So that's my... Also, that Krai is pretty beautiful. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, you could just see here right now. It's pretty cool. So that's what I gotta say about Genshin. I appreciate y'all, and I'll see you all on the next one. Peace.
Twitch.tv/Captain Cabinetz, Captain Cabinetz.